I can watch if Roger is not playing. I can watch. I can't watch anymore. I can't watch if Roger is not playing. I can watch, I suppose, but I know for a few of you in the audience, it's getting pretty difficult to watch professional tennis in the absence of Roger Federer, and that song is dedicated to you. And I want to offer the service because I sympathize with you. I know how painful it is. It's painful for me too, but I want to offer you the service. I will watch the matches in the absence of Federer, and I will give you the essential outcomes, the essential commentary on these matches. I will experience that painful process for all of you, and then just give you the upshot so you don't have to go through that emotional thing to see those players playing. Where's Roger, you're thinking? I know, it's hard. It's like cruel and unusual punishment to make you do that. You can't go out and watch these. Roger, where's Roger? No, it doesn't work. So I'll do it for you, and I'll let you know what the essential outcomes are and give you the essential commentary. So for that reason, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. I want to talk about three things today. The first is the Miami Open, which is proceeding without Roger Federer, and there's some interesting quarterfinals teed up, one of which has already started. And I want to talk about the different generational influences in this round of quarterfinals as compared to the Indian Wells tournament. I also want to sort of hone in on one of the players that seems to have had some kind of breakthrough, a personal breakthrough of some kind, and is doing really well. His name is Borna Coric. We know him. We saw him in that contentious semifinal with Federer at Indian Wells. Coric is doing well again in Miami, and I want to talk a little bit about his background so we can begin to familiarize ourselves with Coric. And then finally, I want to talk about a few of the great viewer comments. Reader comments, viewer comments, I don't know. You guys are readers and viewers, right? We do a little bit of both. So I want to talk about some great comments that we received. Welcome to Tennis Talk Daily. Greetings from Boston. My name is Aaron Knapp. Let's talk about this Miami Open. We've talked about the different generational influences in tennis. That's kind of an ongoing discussion. We've talked about Federer's particular effect in that distribution of generational influence. And we've talked about how Federer does seem to be kind of suppressing those next-gen people in a way. Well, now that Federer is gone, we can see what the scene looks like, and wow, it looks a lot different. Take it from me, for those of you who aren't paying attention, I know it's too painful, but it feels different. Everyone feels it, I'm sure. All the players, I'm sure, just feel that Federer's not there. The pressure's off. No one has to do business with the greatest tennis player of all time. Well, that must really make a difference. But I do think that there are some interesting things going on. There are some changes happening. I've said it before. I've noted before that the old guard does have a continuing influence in the game, that it's unprecedented, but that also changes are happening. And I think with Federer gone, with Murray gone, Djokovic struggling, the big four power structure is sort of out. Well, I think that's going to enable some changes to happen, such that when Federer returns, he could encounter a different game entirely, or a different set of competitors, and it might be interesting for him. I think a little of that is happening already with Djokovic, to be honest. I think he's encountering a different game. Not only is he sort of disappointing and not playing at the level that we are used to seeing him play at, but also the game is changing around him, and he's trying to adapt. He's trying to figure it all out. Well, that always happens when you take a little time off, but I think this is a time of real rapid change, and Federer might see a very different mix of competition when he gets back, we'll just have to see. But in terms of the generational influence, you see the younger players doing better in Miami. It's very obvious. Let's go back to the fourth round at Indian Wells. The fourth round at Indian Wells, you had 3 next-gen people. It was Fritz, Chung, and Coric. Well, in the fourth round at Miami, you had twice as many next-gen folks. You had Chung, Tiafoe, Kyrgios, Zverev, Coric. And so a real good showing for the next gen in the fourth round. Now we're down into the quarterfinals, and we have 3 next-gen people, we have 3 old guard folks, and we have 2 lost-gen people. In particular, in one quarterfinal, you have Delpo versus Raonic, which is a rematch of that semifinal at Indian Wells. Del Potro will probably not have too hard of a time with Raonic, but you never know. Raonic might give Del Potro a run for his money. Listen, at this point, to kind of save you the suspense, though, folks, Delpo is on the march. He wants this Sunshine Double, and if he gets it, if he wins the Sunshine Double, it is going to mark a very significant time in tennis history, and it will be interesting to see what happens. He could be a dominant force in the game, much more dominant than we're used to seeing him. He could be the player whose time is this year, and we may see him going very deep into a few other tournaments, and it might be Grand Slam time for Juan Martín. So that's one of the quarterfinals. That's kind of an older gen versus a lost gen person in Milos Raonic. Then you have Chung versus Isner. That's going on right now. That's pitting the old guard against a next gen rising star. Then in the other quarterfinal, you have a Carino Busta versus Anderson, which is sort of lost generation versus older generation. And then finally, you have a quarterfinal, which is all next gen. It's Zverev versus Coric, which is a match that I am highly anticipating, and I'll have more to say about that once it's played. It's going to be played tomorrow. I'll go through the painful process of watching it, don't worry. But the upshot is that the younger folks are already doing better with Federer gone, and it looks like a pretty much of a different picture from Indian Wells. The difference is significant, folks. So they're breaking through. This is happening. This change, this momentous change is happening right before our very eyes, and Federer, again, might have a different kind of set of competition to deal with, set of competitors to deal with when he gets back. So let's talk about Borna Coric, who is not a Serbian. He has nothing to do with Novak Djokovic's country of origin, and he is not the countryman of Djokovic. I don't think he knows Djokovic. I think he hates Djokovic. Screw Djokovic. I can't depend on Djokovic. Why are we even talk? I said I wasn't going to talk about Djokovic, and there I am talking about Djokovic, dignifying his name. We can't depend on Djokovic. No more talk of Djokovic. But Coric, he's a rising star, and it seems to be rooted in some changes that he made. I mean, everybody sort of noticed he's got a very consistent game, but apparently he was having some problems last year. He was getting down after losing a set in a match, so he'd lose the first set and he kind of could never come back and win the match because he got so down on himself. He had problems kind of controlling his emotions, sort of similar to the problems Federer was having right around the same age as Coric. But late last year, he basically fired his entire management team and coach team and hired new people on, including Roger Federer's coach, Ivan Lubicic, who Coric took on as a kind of manager. But Coric now has a new team and a new perspective, and he kind of evened out his emotions. He's been doing these amazing comebacks. He loses a set, and after he loses a set, he's sort of the favorite to win these days because he's doing so well under those circumstances. So he had a breakthrough, and it was a psychological breakthrough. It was a breakthrough that related to keeping his emotions at bay, to playing the match one point at a time, to not getting down after you make a few mistakes or even lose a set. Sometimes sets come down to literally 1 or 2 points. You can't get down on yourself. But he's a young guy. He's kind of learning these things, but he seems to have learned that lesson very well. So he is dangerous. He's dangerous in particular when you've taken the first set off him. So he also has said in interviews that he was worried a little too much about rankings last year, and now he's just focusing on playing good tennis. So as soon as he got into a zone of emotional control, as soon as he stopped worrying about the rankings, as soon as he took on a kind of fresh set of people for him to be around and for him to help direct his career, then things started going a lot better for Coric. So we'll be keeping a close eye on him. He is a really promising player. And again, he sort of surprised me. I didn't see anything exceptional in his game, and that's kind of the truth. To this day, I still don't see anything sort of outstanding about his game, but it's just the consistency, it's the movement, and he is just able to play that kind of defensive baseline game to the top, at the top level, and he is a star in that department. And so we're going to keep a close eye on Borna Coric. Finally, let's talk a little bit about reader comments. Ilan Mack says that Federer's play in the Kokkinakis match seemed to be unusual. He seemed to be hitting the ball high. He seemed to be using a lot of slices. He was staying way behind the baseline on serves. And according to Ilan Mack, his choice of play seemed very deliberate, and I don't know why. So that left Ilan Mack and myself sort of confused. It did seem deliberate, and I'm interested in your comments on this. He seemed to be just playing a different style of game, defensive, not sort of attacking, not very responsive, just sort of trying to get the ball back, but also just doing that weird stuff like standing so far behind the baseline. What was up with that? Or I saw him hit the ball flat a few times and they would sail out because without the topspin on them, they didn't come down in time. So he was doing that as well. There were just some weird things, particularly in that second set. It might have been that he just decided to let that set go, but there was some differences in his play, and they did look deliberate. So what do you guys think about that? It's an interesting point. From Libby Ditch, which you can correct my pronunciation, Leibdick, maybe. Leibdick says that Federer should probably stop attending so many of those fundraisers. He could have saved some energy by avoiding those things. It's a good point. He was, I guess, obligated to do these things. Maybe Mirka, who plays the role of a manager, kind of public relations person, had booked these things. He had obligations, so he decided to do them. But it's true. It just, if he's looking to conserve energy, maybe it's not a great idea to do these benefits. But so great comment. Finally, a longtime viewer and commenter, LB, notes that, and in response to the people who think Federer is obligated to play clay, well, under the ATP rules, LB notes that Federer does have an exemption from obligatory Masters tournaments. In other words, he has no obligation under the rules, and that has to do with just how long he's been in the game. It has to do with how old he is, how many matches he's played, how many dues he's paid, essentially, how long he's been around. And the ATP says, well, with a guy, and Federer was exempt years ago. He's been around for so long, he was exempt from that requirement years ago. So he's under no obligation to play in any of these tournaments, folks. He knows it, and it's an important part of his strategy because he can fine-tune his schedule accordingly. So those are some great comments. Thank you for the great comments, which keep inspiring me. I've just been feeling so happy these days. I feel so grateful for my children who treat me so well. Oh my God! For my wife who treats me so well. And I feel just so good about things. But listen, I'm watching the tennis. I'm doing the painful tennis watching for you, and I will give you the essential results. I hope everyone is well once again, and I will talk with you soon. Bye-bye.